Okay, just trying to get us live here on Instagram. I think we're good. I think we're live on YouTube as well. Let me just, I think we're all set. Okay. All right, great. Welcome to April. I can't believe it's April and also almost the end of April. So welcome to my April nap chat or sleep Q&A. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Allison Egidi. I'm a pediatric sleep coach. I'm located in the Charlottesville, Virginia area. And I work with kids 0 to 17, more specifically with their parents, to help improve their sleep. And I founded Sleep and Wellness Coach back in 2016. I will be my 10-year anniversary come June. And every single month since I founded this business, I have led a free sleep Q&A. So that's what this is. And the way it works is that there was a post that went up on Instagram yesterday and an event on YouTube inviting people to submit questions in advance. I thought I had it scheduled to go up yesterday morning and I didn't. So it did not go up until last night. So I think I only have one pre-submitted question. But how it typically works is I answer the pre-submitted questions first. And then I am happy to take any live questions throughout this as well. So I'm going to answer this pre-submitted question I have, but if you're joining me, you can type it, your question in the comments of this video, and then I'm happy to answer your questions. Before I start, I also just want to let you know about other resources I have. So the primary other free resource I have is my podcast. I have a podcast called How Long Til Bedtime. And we are 4 years into that podcast, I think 235 episodes. And so you can absolutely go specifically on Spotify. It's the easiest spot to search the podcast. So you can find the podcast, subscribe to the podcast. You can search for topics. And so very good chance I have discussed a topic you're interested in. So be sure to check out the How Long Til Bedtime podcast. And then we offer one-on-one coaching. So it's me, and then I have 2 sleep coaches on my team. And we offer one-on-one coaching, virtual. So we work with people all over the country. I also do in-home consultations here in the Charlottesville area. And I have also online workshops for people interested. So you can learn more about our services and my online workshops on our website, which is sleepandwellnesscoach.com. Okay. Let me pull up this pre-submitted question. So this came from Paige, and she said, "Hello, here's my question. Son is 18 months old. He's been a terrible sleeper and difficult baby from the beginning. It's extremely hard to get him down for a nap, though we try for 1 nap per day. He'll usually only nap in the car, so sometimes we drive around for 90 minutes. More concerning for us, he has never slept through the night, not even close. He still wakes multiple times. His personality is extremely strong-willed and emotional." I have one of these. Co-sleeper on floor bed with mom. Falls asleep in my arms only, then I escape, but he wakes up with uncontrollable crying tantrums, throws himself against the wall, on the floor, etc. The middle of the night tantrums sometimes can last hours, no joke. How do we get him to sleep in his own bed, floor bed, toddler bed, crib, or other through the night? We're dying over here. Side note, he uses an empty bottle as a pacifier sometimes, and it is the only way we can ever get him to eventually calm down. He's also the second child, and our older girl sleeps like a dream, still takes a regular full nap, goes to bed with little assistance. We treat them the same and have done the same stuff for both, but the 18-month son is extremely difficult to manage. Okay, I literally was just talking about this on a consultation with a client. the whole like nature versus nurture, and how I do think, while I think we matter, for sure, it's amazing how kids are born so different, even within their own house. So my children are only 18 months apart, and they are so different in so many ways, which I always say has been like the best gift for my business because I've lived it both ways. With a kind of more naturally rule follower, easygoing child, and one that is more highly sensitive and pushing the limits. And so I totally picking up what you're laying down here, Paige. And so there you have a lot of moving pieces here. So far more going on than I can solve in a free sleep Q&A. So I'll start with that, but I want to just share some things that, without having like all the details, a couple thoughts with you. The first one being along the lines of how kids are born so different. I'm a strong believer that kids are born with varying levels of natural sleep talent, and I compare it to athleticism. And if you've been out, you said you have an older child. I don't know if you've been out to see the 3 or 4-year-olds on the soccer field, but when you go out there, and it's probably true for almost any sport, just soccer is my main sport, it will look like some of those kids popped out of the womb knowing how to play soccer. They are fast. They are like really good little runners. They can kick the ball. They're like taking the ball coast to coast, and they inevitably have the parents on the sidelines. They're like, I don't know. We didn't do anything. We don't know how they're so gifted. They're naturally good athletes. And then I coached youth 8 soccer for years. I now coach middle school soccer, but in that kind of U8 group, it's an interesting time because you start to see kids who have been taught like some athletic ability, like they've had some coaching, and yes, there's still the very kids who it's so easy for them to like take on these new skills, but you're also seeing kids who are like learning how to be more athletic. And sleep is the same way. We all have friends who are like, I don't know, I laid my baby down and they slept, and or you might have a kid in your own house that you did that and it just didn't feel that hard. And then you have a child who doesn't. You're doing the same thing, or you're doing what your friends did, and they are not sleeping. And I think a part of that is it's not their natural gift. It does not mean they cannot learn to sleep, but it means that their sleep puzzle is more complicated. So with those kids who are naturally inclined to sleep, that's not to say those parents didn't do something right, but they have like a 25-piece chunky sleep puzzle. You put a few pieces together and it's like kind of clear where the rest goes, versus a child who's not as naturally inclined to sleep. They might have 1,000-piece sleep puzzle. So you can get a couple pieces in place, but there's still a ton that's out of place. And those kids are the more sensitive kids. If all the pieces aren't in place, the sleep's not coming together. So that's why I say, Paige, like this is sounds like your son has a complicated sleep puzzle and there's a lot of pieces to put in place. So it's not you, it's probably related to his natural sleep talent. But I would say this as you think about moving forward. My goal for, I think, your smoothest path forward, particularly with kids whose sleep is not their natural talent at his age, would be to get him into a crib as you make some changes. I'm a big advocate of trying to keep kids in cribs until at least the age of 3 if we can. We can't always. I just had a consultation with a 2-year-old that there's not a way we can safely keep her in the crib. And so we will move forward with a plan that is not involving her in the crib. But if possible, we do, because what you are doing is buying their brain more time to develop more impulse control. And what does a child need to be able to resist the urge to get out of bed and follow you out at bedtime, or to resist the urge to immediately pop out of the bed when they wake up during the night? Impulse control. And so the longer you allow them to stay in the crib, you're giving them a gift of buying their brain more time to develop more impulse control. And that improves significantly at 3 and beyond. So when you're talking about an 18-month-old, immediately I'm like, our goal, if you're ready to take action and shift away from this current scenario, would be to move him to a crib. I think that's going to give you a successful path forward. I would be doing that with a sleep sack because that's going to help keep him from climbing out. And then You didn't really mention his sleep schedule in here, but I would really think about um, putting him on a very solid sleep schedule because we want to work with his body and his natural biological rhythm to help him sleep more soundly. So if you change nothing else, you can start on this without changing anything else. And that would be I like to see 18-month-olds sleep a minimum of an hour and a half, but ideally 2 to 2.5 hours. And I would test out a starting time there between 12 and 12:30. So you're looking for a nap where he's falling asleep in that 12 to 12:30 window. And ideally, he's sleeping, I'd say 2 to 2.5 hours. And then from there, you want to start testing out a bedtime, particularly if he's not napping long. Do no later than 7. And if he's really not had a good nap day, I would do earlier. Like if he totally skips a nap, put him to bed between 6 and 6:30, but don't have him napping late in the day. So if he doesn't nap um, in that kind of window of ideally kind of around 12:30, falling asleep in that window, and then ending around 3. If he's not sleeping in that window, don't let him nap later in the day. So keep him up and then put him to bed sometime between 6 and 7. That should allow him to fall into a higher quality sleep. So without knowing your schedule, a lot of times when we have these very challenging sleepers, because we're so desperate and we're not really sure what to do, we're often not having them sleep at the ideal times. So I would absolutely work on that. And then your next step, so so we have the schedule, decide if you want to transition to a crib, would be to have kind of a comprehensive plan around how are we going to teach him to sleep in the crib. And so there are varying ways to do that. And so the next common question is like, what sleep training method do you like? I don't have a strong opinion on like the ideal sleep training method. I don't think there's one right method. If there's one right method, we would all have been doing it. So what I think is it's about choosing a method that works well for your child's personality. And so if that's something that we can help you with in one-on-one coaching is trying to figure out what method is going to work with his personality. So that's what I can't cover here. It could be a really hands-on method. It could be a middle of the road method. It could be a more hands-off method. I would not go from you falling asleep with him or co-sleeping with him to like really hands-off. You'd want to meet him in the middle of like building up to that. But there's different ways to go about that. So that's where a one-on-one consultation could help. But for now, I would say really focus on that schedule. And then also, even if you have a bad night, in addition to the timing of when he goes to sleep and when he goes to sleep for the nap and when you make sure he's up from the nap, is I would go ahead and make sure he's up by 7 a.m., even if the night is bad. So really starting to contain when the windows when he's allowed to sleep can help to start to stabilize his sleep. So I would start there. And then if you're ever interested in a consultation and getting him back in the crib, that's what our area of expertise is, and happy to help with a consultation there. And you can learn more about that on my website. So, okay. All right. Miss maybe it's M. Shea Watson said, "Hi, Allison. This is Mary Shea. Hello. How do I get my 2.5-year-old to stop screaming for one of us to get her when the green light turns on? Is this an us problem? It's just such a rough wake-up call." Okay. So one thing you could do is set your alarm for a little bit before the green light. As so some of it is like sometimes we have to change the behavior. We all get in a rut on behavior sometimes of like this is just how we behave. Um so one thing you can do is shift that, and what you would say is you don't have to call for us in the morning. Whether you call for us or not, when the light turns green, we're going to come get you. And so then you need to be true to that. So you would just go ahead and set your alarm and if your 2.5-year-old is up, go in and get them. Another thing you could say, and so along with that, you could say, in addition to being committed to that, sometimes I'll like, instead of, you might be saying now, if you don't want them screaming, you might be saying like, don't scream when the light turns green. And then, but you could switch it to, sometimes I give them permission to do it, where I'll say, you can scream if you want to, but I'm coming either way when the light turns green. If you scream or you don't scream, I'm coming. And we kind of remove the power of the scream so that they're not collecting data of like, oh, I scream and that's how I get them in here. Um, and so sometimes I'll give them permission. But in addition to that, then we have to be true to the word of we'll come when the light turns green. So then I would just set your alarm a few minutes ahead of the light turning green and be ready to go in there. And when you go in, whether they were screaming or not, just go in and be like, hello, good morning. The light is green. It's time to get up. And just bring good positive energy so that you're kind of demonstrating the type of energy we want when that light turns green. And, you know, hopefully they kind of adapt their behavior. Okay, you said, also my kindergartner is happiest with a 6 p.m. bedtime, 6 a.m. wake up. She loved your Sleep Champion program. I love it. How do I handle after school activities that are getting progressively later? Okay. First of all, I love that your kindergartner is getting 12 hours of sleep. It's like so great. It's such a gift to give them. So that's great. As you get the later activities, and just to be clear, some kids have earlier sleep rhythms. So not for anyone listening, it's like, oh my gosh, my kindergartner could not go to bed at 6 p.m. Kids have different sleep rhythms. And so it's not to say every kindergartner needs to go to bed at 6 p.m., but I really love a kindergartner getting 11 hours of sleep when they can. I think it benefits them greatly. And I have a child who will turn 12 in July, and she also crushes life when she gets a lot of sleep. And while, because of the activities, this is where I'm going with this, we don't always hit this, but her ideal bedtime is still 7:30. She's about to be 12, and she can sleep 7:30 till 6:45 or 7. So, and she does have higher sleep needs, and earlier sleep has always worked for her, but she's in sports and activities, and there are times we don't get that done. So what I usually say in these situations is don't go from 0 to hero, where you go from like, we've committed to this 6 p.m. bedtime and we've been so great, to like, now we have activities 3 or 4 nights a week, because you're gonna push it too far. So I would start to put something in there. I wouldn't commit to something crazy, which usually doesn't happen until they're later. But like, for example, did it happen this winter? Maybe. Definitely last spring. This time last year, my daughter was in a basketball, like an AAU basketball thing, where the practice ended at 9 p.m. This is my 7:30 bedtime child. And it was 30 minutes away, which was like nuts. So we didn't get home till 9:30, and she survived because it was just one night a week, but it wasn't great. We did not sign up for it this year. Don't overcommit to something crazy out of the gate. But might you have an activity at this age where you're like, yeah, we don't get home until 6 or 6:30? Yes. But then you just want to have a clear plan. Like, so for my daughter, older, but she changed in her pajamas in the car. She had her snack, because that was way after when we ate dinner, which was way before practice. She would eat a snack on the way home, and came home. She brushed her teeth. I'd read to her very briefly, or she would read a couple pages. She did lights out. And so I would say, like, when we have this activity and it's after our bedtime, this is how we're going to adjust, so that you can still get enough sleep. So you want to have clear expectations around what's going to happen when you get home, that it is later in the bedtime. We have to go to bed really quickly. And then you just kind of see how it's going. So I've told the story a million times, but I had an experience when this same daughter was in, was it even second or third grade, where I started keeping her out late a couple of nights to go to UVA basketball games. And so instead of going to bed at 7:30, she was going to bed at 9. And she managed, her temperament held up, but it was third grade, because of when they were getting grades. Her grades dropped from like A pluses to Bs. That was the impact. I realized it after it was like 2 weeks of Bs. it took a little while to kick in. And then after 2 weeks of straight Bs, I was like, this is weird. I'm kind of curious. You're not going to any more night games. You're going to bed. And within a week, she was back up to A's. So you just want to start to see how it impacts kids and be willing to change course. If you miss the mark with some activity, you might finish that session, but then maybe you won't commit to that session again next time. But it doesn't mean the same child ultimately ended up in this basketball practice that didn't end till 9, and she held up fine. She did not affect her academics last year. For a variety of reasons, we decided not to do it this year, that being part of it. But you got to do a little trial and error, I guess is where I'm going with this, to test it out. And don't just jump off into the deep end. Like, dabble into it with like an activity or two. So it's like once or twice a week, and see how it goes, and look for activities, which is not always easy to do, that are not crazy late for her to try out. Hopefully that helps. Okay. Emmy Bems said, do you have any recommendations for getting back into routine after a regression? This regression is likely due to a life transition that is currently happening. 3-year-old is moving to the 3 and up class after beginning his classroom. After being in his classroom since 7 months, overnight wakings have resulted. Okay, so I assume that's the transition you're talking about, or maybe there's a bigger life transition, and this is another one. 3-year-old is moving to the 3 and up classroom after being in the same classroom 7 months. Yeah, that is a big transition. If you've been in the same place daily for a couple years here, and then you're moving. So that could be enough to trigger a regression. So my thought when we have, we need to reset after a regression, which, to be clear, regressions are most often triggered by sickness, travel, or a life event. And I would say this is like a life event. And mainly because you either get off your routine or schedule, or your body gets put under stress and it responds when you're 3 to by like losing emotional regulation and impulse control, and then you get a little out of whack, and then you get overtired, and it's like you're on the hamster wheel where we're having all these issues. So when that's the case and things are feeling out of control, and by the way, this is true like with a 3-year-old, with a 12-year-old, and frankly, with an adult. When I feel out of control, I tap into some of things I've learned working with kids, is like, I need to set routine and structure for myself to regain some kind of feeling of reduced anxiety and control and functioning as my best self. So I would start, without kind of having all the details, I would just start by saying, hey, sleep's been a little tricky lately. And starting tonight, we're going to kind of do a little bit of a reset, and we're going to start following these sleep rules. So I'm making this name up, but let's say, I think you said it's a boy. No, you didn't say. No, I'm going to say, you said his. Okay. I'm going to say his name is John. You would say, we're going to start following these sleep rules to help us remember what we're supposed to be doing leading up to bedtime. And so you'll have a sign, like a poster board, that says like John sleep rules, and you are literally going to write out your routine. So number 1 would, and it should be simple, and it should not take more than 30 minutes. Number 1 would be take a bath or wash hands. Number 2 would be brush your teeth and put on your PJs. Number 3 would be read 3 books. Number 4 would be get tucked in and get your back rubbed while mom sings Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Mom or dad sings Twinkle, Little Star. And then I think I'm on number 5. Number 5 would be stay in your bed until the light turns green. So you have clear expectations. So when he's pushing boundaries and asking for more books or whatever the heck else these creative 3-year-olds come up with, you could be like, oh no, we're actually on number 3, or we're done with number 3, read 3 books. Now it's time to get tucked in and for me to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So that's not to say he's going to be like, some kids are like, thank you so much for putting structure in place. Some kids will really push back And it's okay if they push back, because then you're just holding to the structure. So we're not in quite the same power struggle as in when it's like, well, they want this and I want that. It's like, oh, I'm annoyed they're holding the structure, but I understand what they're doing. We're not just willy-nilly deciding what's happening tonight. So decide what the structure is, write it down, even though they can't read, so that everyone has a visual in the room, and then stick to the structure. And then you got to hold calm space if they unravel and aren't happy about it, and we can let them feel all the feelings, and we can keep moving with the routine and the structure, even if they're upset and unhappy. So that's generally kind of my guidelines about getting back into, answer your question, back into a routine after a regression, is like, decide what the routine is, write it out, and then communicate that starting that night, you are going to follow this new routine. And then remember that you are the team captain. Your job is to keep everything moving, even if your child unravels. I always say, like, you want to be the sturdy leader for them. And so calm, confident, and be okay with all the big feelings that they might have. Oh, you said it's Sawyer. Okay, cool. So that's generally oh, you did a consult a few weeks ago. Awesome. So that's generally the reset process, is just like revisit it. And if you already have like sleep rules, then you can say, like, we've gotten off track. Like, oh my gosh, guess what's been happening? You haven't followed the sleep rules. Mom and dad haven't followed the sleep rules. Ooh. We all make mistakes sometimes, but the good news is mom and dad talked, and starting tonight, we're going to follow the sleep rules. So sometimes, if you're saying you already had a consult, maybe you had a structure and then it started to slip. So if it started to slip, sometimes we just have to own it. We have to own that it slipped and that we're doing a reset starting tonight, and then forge ahead from there. Okay. I think, let me just make sure I didn't miss any pre-submitted questions, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. Hold on one second. I didn't, looks like we're good. Okay, cool. Let me look and tell you guys when the May nap chat is going to be happening. It is on May 15th, which is a Friday. You're welcome. All right, so the next nap chat is going to be on May 15th. It's a Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern. So mark your calendar. There will be a post that goes up on Thursday inviting people to submit questions in advance, and an event that'll go up on YouTube. And then I'll go live that Friday at noon to answer your questions. All right, guys, thanks for coming by. You can always learn more at sleepandwellnesscoach.com, and check out the podcast, How Long Till Bedtime. And I will see you guys back here next month. Bye for now.